What?
It's time now for My Two Favorite Librarians. Brought to you by the Copper Tree Boutique in Dales Grand Market, located in beautiful, historic downtown Amherst.
Hi, this is My Two Favorite Librarians. I'm Denise Corey.
I'm Chantel Taylor, and today we're talking about the most frustrating characters in fiction.
Yes.
So, is this a Pop Sugar challenge?
No.
Because it was really hard to come up with.
Really?
Well, I mean, there's lots of lists, but nothing is like frustrating. So how do you define frustrating? Is it annoying? Is it evil? Is it like ridiculous? Like, what's frustrating?
Well, and when you and I started to talk about this before, you said you just quit books when you find the character frustrating. So
it's not necessarily frustrating. It's if I don't like them.
Yeah.
So I don't necessarily finish books. And actually, the last book club book I read all the way through, that character is on this list because I hated her.
So where did you find lists?
I found lists on Bustle. I found lists on people's like blogs, although they were good and they were bad. There were lots of lists for like the most annoying, the most hated. So there were lots and lots of lists out there.
I found a list on Goodreads called Frustrating Characters. So I am obviously not the only person who feels this way about characters in books. Don't you ever have that feeling where you're reading a book and you just think, oh, I wish I could reach into those pages and shake that person?
Yes, when I was going through some of my books. But again, a lot of books that I would be annoyed with people, I just don't read them because I'm like, I don't like this person. I'm done here. But yes, I did find a couple that I'm like, why?
So the number one book on the Goodreads list and the number one book of my level of frustration is the book that I punched. I've only punched one book.
50 Shades of Grey.
I would have thrown the book, but it was a library book, and don't damage library books, please.
Well, technically, Bella and Edward, so if you don't know, 50 Shades of Grey was originally fan fiction for Twilight. So Bella and Edward Cullen are on a lot of lists for the most annoying and frustrating characters.
So the main character in 50 Shades of Grey is Anastasia Steele.
Yes.
And she is so clueless and irritating. And every time she talked about her inner goddess. Yeah, that's when I closed the book and punched it. It was a soft cover, thankfully.
Would you like to hear a quote about Twilight?
Sure.
Somebody said, sure, Twilight has somehow attracted a legion of fans, some of them surprisingly sane, but a significant number of people despise the idealized central couple as well. Hardly surprising considering the two share a vomitously unhealthy, codependent, and emotionally abusive relationship package that's sold as romance. Does couples counseling not exist in Mareverse? And Stephanie Meyer was the person who wrote Twilight.
Yeah, because like he sneaks into her room and watches her sleep.
Well, and beyond that, it's like, and this is really echoed in 50 Shades, it's the, oh, you haven't eaten yet, you need to eat something. Oh,
yeah, I have autonomy over my own body and my own choices. Thank you very much.
No. And literally in 50 Shades, it was in the contract that she had to eat a certain number of times.
Well, and
and a certain diet.
Yeah, she chose to not have
agency over her own.
Yeah, just so those are characters that are frustrating.
Yeah.
Yeah. How about a different type of frustration?
So one of my favorite frustrating characters that I read all the time is Lula from the Stephanie Plum novels.
Okay.
So Lula, I don't think she was actually in the first book. She was in it.
She was in it
a
briefly.
tiny bit. Yeah. So Lula is a former sex worker who joins Stephanie at her cousin's bail bonds office to do the files. But what she really wants to do is bail bonds. So she's like Stephanie's sidekick. And it's a real sort of like Three Stooges thing that's going on. So Stephanie Plum is kind of like the every person. she's not extraordinary at anything. She's like, she manages to get through things, but
something always blows up, like quite literally.
And it's usually Lula's fault. Lula's like, oh, let me just shoot out the tires on this car. And Stephanie's like, no. And then Lula shoots them out, except she doesn't shoot out the tires. She shoots out like the gas tank. Or like she shoots out the car. Like one time she drove a tank or it wasn't a tank. It was like a big rig or something. And she took out like every parked car and mailbox, like for like half the city. Like, it's just like, can somebody not tranquilize that woman? Like, she cannot be talked out of anything. And I think Stephanie's so frustrated with her life and her life is a disaster, but it's Lula. Lula is like 75% of the disasters that happen to Stephanie.
But you enjoy reading that character.
I do.
Because it's that Three Stooges sort of like, what terrible disaster is she going to?
The time she tried to shoot after the people that were trying to kill her, and her boobs came out of her top in the middle of the highway, and then she got stuck in the car window and farted and was like, it's just like ridiculous.
Which book is that in?
That is I think it's the book 15, and it's the one where she's eating all the barbecue sauce. The Chipotle Killers. It's just ridiculousness, and it's awesome.
Or what about Eleanor Oliphant?
I did not find her annoying.
So Chantel and I both read this book. Eleanor Oliphant is Completely Fine by Gail Honeyman. And we both loved that book, which is rare that you and I both love the same book.
Yeah, really.
Because we generally do not agree on what we are reading.
No.
And by generally, I mean like 99.9% of the time disagree on the books. But this one we both loved. In the beginning, Eleanor is so frustrating because you're just looking at her life and going, why can't you dig yourself out of this hole?
Well, and she has like, I don't know, she must be on the spectrum somewhere, like OCD.
I think she had PTSD.
Yes.
Because of the whole relationship with her mother.
But like, isn't everything like she eats the same thing every Friday night? She's like medicating herself with alcohol. She's like, you know, doesn't want to make any friends because like there's some really serious mental health issues going on with this poor girl.
Yeah. So like every week she has the exact same schedule. She tries to talk to only the same people and very little if possible. And like every Friday she comes home,
pizza and vodka,
makes a frozen pizza and drinks a big bottle of vodka. That is a bad life choice. But then she starts an improvement process.
Well, no.
That's in quoting fingers because it was poor.
She sees a man having a heart attack and think, oh, he's just a drunk and she's not going to do anything. And somebody else comes into the situation, and I can't remember what his name is.
Her coworker.
No, it's not her. Oh, yeah, I guess he works in IT, doesn't he? Yes. Yeah. And he's like, oh my gosh, this guy's having a heart attack, and they take him to the hospital. And so the two of them kind of get involved with each other in their lives. And I was very, very glad that they did not end up in a romance, that they just stayed friends. I was really happy about that.
Yes.
So yeah, she's kind of obsessed with
this musician.
Yes.
That's when she starts her improvement.
And it's actually really funny because it's like the man who's in the hospital, his daughter's a hairdresser. So she goes to that person to get like a haircut. And it turns out really well. And then she walks into a store and she just wanders around looking all the salespeople and says, I like the way she dresses. I'll get her to help me pick out some clothes. Like, it's really funny the way that things sort of fall into place for her.
And although much of this book is quite sad, when she goes to the spa to get hair removal, that scene was like, there were times in that book when I was like really quite upset. But that scene where she's at the spa was laugh out loud funny.
I also really like when she went to the dance. I think it was like a wedding dance, and she's doing like, she's never been to like a party really before, and she's dancing with people and she's describing it, and she's like, oh, make a letter, do a little jig, make a letter, do a little jig, and you realize like she's dancing to YMCA. Like, it was just so delightful.
So, as much as I found her a frustrating character, that is a book that I would strongly recommend people read.
Absolutely.
Eleanor Oliphant is completely fine by Gail Honeyman. I just love that book. And it's been a few years since I've read it. It's like 4 years now.
Yeah, and we're still talking about it.
But I did initially dislike Eleanor, and I did think about maybe putting that book down because I wasn't going to be able to.
Because I think I read it first, because I don't remember finding her frustrating. I think I was quite delighted because Jen had told me to read it.
So I don't know if this one counts.
Okay, is it the baby from the Scarlet Letter? Because Pearl, the baby from the Scarlet Letter, was on a lot of lists as the most annoying character.
Really?
Yeah.
She's a baby.
Yeah.
Why?
Well, apparently she's representing like all of what's her name? What's Hester Prynne. All of her sins, and nobody likes this baby, and the baby's really sad, and everybody's like, "Oh, we hate that baby." The baby Pearl from Scarlet Letter on numerous lists that I looked at.
Oh, well, that's
weird.
Sad for that. I mean, that child did nothing.
It's a baby, yeah.
No, I was going to say, I don't know if this counts because it's not actually fiction. The Parents in the Glass Castle by Jeanette Walls. So The Glass Castle was a memoir that came out in 2005. It was a big deal. It was on all of the lists for a long time. Like, it was a huge bestseller. And I listened to it in 2011. So I listened to it on audio. And my initial review from 2011, because I write little blurbs about the books I read, I listened to Wall's memoir as read by the author. Thank goodness it's not yet open window season here, because I found myself talking back to the book. Every time her father said that he'd never let her down, I'd find myself enumerating all the ways he had disappointed his family. This is my review.
Wow, okay.
And I remember, like, her parents would do things as recounted by her. So it's a memoir, so, you know, you have to take everything with a grain of salt.
Yeah,
it's based on people's memories. Yeah. And the way that you and I remember things can be different.
Yeah, let's talk about Notre Dame.
But every time she was talking about, like, things that her parents did, I was just, like, yelling, like, why? Why do you trust them? Why do you believe they're going to come back? They pushed you out of a car in the desert and left you. I don't know. Like,
I don't know. I mean, I guess you were obviously frustrated.
Did you read that book?
I did, but like so many books on this list, it was like, oh God, I read that so many years ago. I don't like even Eleanor Oliphant. It was like, I don't remember anything bad about her. It was wonderful.
She was so awesome. Maybe I just remember frustrating more than you do.
Maybe.
Yeah. And Notre Dame, my version is the correct version.
It's not.
It is.
So, one of my most hated books of all times, I was glad to see this character actually came up on a list, is A Confederacy of Dunces. We've talked about it before.
I've never read it.
Don't do it. So his name is Ignatius J. Riley. I don't think I got through 20 pages and I was like, oh, now I do remember this. My boss at the time, it was her favorite book. It won the Pulitzer. Everybody loves it. It's the only book he's written. It's like this amazing piece of literature. He died.
He's dead now, yeah. He won't be writing anything else.
Thank God. Hated this book. So it was nice to see this on a list. And the little quote were, readers were never meant to sympathize or empathize with the self-aggrandizing delusions by whiny Confederacy of Dunces anti-hero Ignatius J. Riley. But some find his Pulitzer-winning annex hilarious, whereas others just wish he were real so they could punch him in the jaw. And that's where I am. It's just like, I hate you. But I just stopped reading it. Like I couldn't... He had inappropriate feelings for his dog, and I was like, nope, we are done here.
I'm never reading that book.
Don't.
I am never reading that book.
People love it.
But this is what I'm talking about when I'm describing a frustrating character. That sums it up really well.
That's the only one I really remember.
You just wish that they were real so you could just punch them in the jaw. Yeah. I've never punched anyone in the jaw.
No, I've never punched anyone either.
But but fictional characters.
You can imagine.
I can imagine wanting to punch them in the jaw.
Okay. How about one? I don't know if it's frustrating, but it's definitely a hated character that was on a lot of these lists. Dolores Umbridge.
Oh.
Yeah.
I hated her. I know hate is a strong word, but I hated her. She is from Harry Potter, if you don't know. And she was so evil.
Voldemort was such a loser villain that they had to bring in a bigger, better villain.
Yeah, and it was a middle-aged woman who was just officious and bureaucratic and mean.
But it was beyond that because she was tortured.
Mean.
She physically tortured those children.
She was sadistic.
Awful character.
Oh.
Played to perfection in the movies by what is her name? I can't
remember the actress's name.
Right on me.
However,
I just want to say Dolores Umbridge.
However, I feel like you would really, people would vilify you so much for playing that character, you wouldn't want to be associated with it too much. Although she did a great job.
She did an amazing job.
Yeah. We should Google who that actress is.
I'm doing it right now. Imelda Staunton. That's her name.
Imelda Staunton.
Imelda Staunton.
I would have never remembered that in a million years.
I would have remembered it eventually. Because she's done a lot of other...
Oh, I know. I can picture her. So I encourage people out there who are listening to us, if you want to talk about a character that frustrated you, we'll post some of these lists on our My Two Favorite Librarians Facebook page, and you can comment about a character that you found frustrating. And then I'm sure other people will join in and say, yeah, I hated that character too. All right.
So we didn't talk about any of the Jane Austen characters. We just watched Pride and Prejudice, and you were like, Lydia. Lydia would be a frustrating character.
Yeah.
Emma. I hated Emma.
I only read Pride and Prejudice.
We just watched it. The whole thing. You just watched it.
Yeah. No. I mean, I didn't read any other Jane Austen.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh. I hated Emma. Hated Emma. A lot of the Heathcliff and Mr. Rochester are big characters that people despise.
I reread Wuthering Heights a few years ago. And when I read it in high school, I remember thinking it was this grand romantic story. And then when I reread it a couple of years ago, so I would have been in my 40s, I was like, Heathcliff is a jerk.
Yeah.
He's a jerk. He's terrible. He's super mean to her. And everybody dies. And it's just like, well, that's what you get.
Daisy Buchanan was on a lot of lists for much like Bella Swan as being sort of a vapid, nothing character that was raised to be pretty and nothing else.
I feel like that was the point of that novel.
Yes, but again, why is everybody interested in that girl?
Yeah.
Holden Caulfield was another one that was on a lot of people's lists. And I mean, it's been so long since I read Catcher in the Rye, I don't even remember.
I barely recollect Catcher in the Rye.
He was on a lot of lists. Patrick Buchanan, American Psycho, he was on a lot of lists for terrible, annoying characters.
I could not finish that book. It was so graphically violent. And you know me, I love a zombie book. I love horror. I read a lot of gross and gory books. I could not finish American Psycho. It was...
So one of the comments that I read, somebody had written, if you're dating a man and he thinks Patrick Buchanan is ironic and funny, leave immediately. Just run in the other direction.
Oh, yeah.
That is
Just
all
leave.
kinds of red
Just
flags.
leave.
Just go.
Yeah.
Okay. So... my most annoying character, the last book club book that I read that wasted my life, that I hate this author, that everybody loves, is Libby Day from Dark Places. Gillian Flynn.
Oh, see, I didn't like her either.
I wish she died. I remember thinking...
the character, not the author.
We're not
wishing death on the author.
I wish that she had been slaughtered with the rest of her family in that massacre. I was like... And I don't know who I found more frustrating. The daughter who built the massacre to like fund her own life.
Yeah.
Or the mother who thought it was a good idea to hire, okay, spoiler alert, to hire someone to kill her so her kids could collect the insurance. Like, it was a complete and utter, and I just thought, what? Who would think that was a good idea?
I love how you're like almost speechless.
What grown-up would think, oh, my farm is going under. My kids need more help. I should kill myself.
Except I'll hire someone to do it so they get insurance money.
So they get insurance money because my kids who, like, the youngest of whom is like 2 or 3 and the oldest is just like in high school, they'll totally be able to use that money responsibly and like pay off my debt and like get the farm moving again. What?
And be fine.
Yeah. I was just like, that is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard in my life. And shockingly, someone's probably done it.
Oh, probably. Yeah.
Except they probably killed their kids instead of themselves.
Ugh. Yeah. Search through your true crime books. What are you reading right now?
In honor of frustrating characters while I was going through, characters I often find very frustrating in young adult novels are the parents. Mm-hmm. The parents, of course, from the children's point of view, seem like incredibly obtuse.
Yes.
They don't recognize, like, oh, there's something wrong with my kid. Like, you know, somebody's just died or something's just happened and the kid's going along like a little zombie. And then all of a sudden they find joy and it's like, you must stop doing that. We must stop you from hanging out with these people. You're grounded. You can't do anything. And it's like, and maybe that's good writing that they make, like the authors making you feel, because obviously I'm not a parent.
Nor are you a teenager.
Yeah, anymore. So I just finished listening to Sarah Dessen's Just Listen, which is my favorite of her young adult novels. My favorite.
I have just started listening to Endurance, Shackleton's Incredible Voyage by Alfred Lansing.
Holy cow. I was going to say something else, but...
Radio friendly.
Yeah.
So in August 1914, polar explorer Ernest Shackleton... No, it's just a badly written sentence. Okay, never mind. Shackleton was trying very hard to reach the South Pole. And there are... I don't understand why all of these men needed to like reach the North Pole and the South Pole, and that was their whole big thing. But anyway, Shackleton went out in a boat called the Endurance. They had 27 crew on board. These people basically volunteered. They were paid next to nothing. They chose to go out on this. And the ice crushed the ship, and they had to leave the ship. And there was nothing for hundreds of miles but ice. So it is their journey over ice and sea and how they survived or not. Last year I read The Mines of Winter by Ed O'Loughlin, and that's a fictional book about polar exploration. And then when I saw this on the shelf, I thought, oh, maybe I should learn a little bit about it. So I'm listening to it right now. But speaking of frustrating, why? Hundreds of thousands of dollars spent.
Yep. Because did any of them actually survive?
I don't believe so. No.
Okay, I didn't think so, but I don't know much about it either.
They didn't survive to come back to...
Yes, that's what I meant.
Yeah.
They may have survived to go and die while walking back to nothingness.
And I've just started it, so I don't know all of the details yet. I mean, I could go look up the history, but I'd rather listen to it unfold in this book and then probably yell at the book about, like, why? Why are you doing that? Why? Like, what foolishness? I have completed 24 books so far this year and 22 out of the 50 Pop Sugar Reading Challenges.
Nice.
Working away on that.
Coming up on the halfway point.
Yeah. And I want to talk about what's happening at the library.
Make it quick, because we're running long.
April 22nd, we're talking about TJ Klune, the author TJ Klune, on Facebook Live.
Yes.
And April 27th at 7 p.m., we're having a public meeting about the library. We just want to tell you how we're doing, how our funding is, give you an idea of what we've done over the past year. So that will be Facebook Live, April 27th on the Cumberland Public Library's Facebook page.
Excellent.
Do you know what we're talking about next week?
No idea.
A main character that works at your current or your dream job.
Huh.
Talk to you next week.
Bye.
My 2 favorite librarians. Brought to you by the Copper Tree Boutique in Dales Grand Market, located in beautiful, historic downtown Amherst.